Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Kubert School live at CCXP 2020. It's so great to see you all here, and I'm very excited to be here to chit-chat with you about the Kubert School. My name is Anthony Marquis, and I'm the president of the Kubert School, and we have something really special planned for you guys today, and I hope that you really enjoy it. But before we get into it, I got to bring in my special co-host with the most, Mr. Fernando Ruiz. Fernando, welcome.
Oh, hello, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Open arms, baby. We're always ready to go. It's always a good time. How you holding up, Fernando?
Great. You mentioned the CCXP. I guess I did a video for a class for them for narrative art. And I guess that video's aired. And I've gotten so many people from that video start to follow me on Instagram and even on YouTube. So it's been great. It's been really nice to hear from them.
Well, I've always heard wonderful things about the people down at CCXP, and I always hear it from one person in particular, and it's our special guest today. And I'd like to welcome him in with us today, Mr. Lee Weeks. How are you, sir? Lee, how are you?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Very nice.
Great. So good to have you
right here too. Good to be here.
So you've always had really great things to say about CCXP. Could you tell us a little bit about the show and your last time that you were down there?
I was down there with my wife 2018, and we just had one of the greatest weeks of our lives. It certainly was one of the best times I've ever had. People are just warm and beautiful, and they love the craft of comics. It's a big, very, very big show. I think it's bigger than New York Comic Con. I think there were like that year there were 270,000 people. It just the love of the craft is unparalleled. And what myself and a bunch of other artists noticed, and I said this in the other that's going to air I think a little later today, is that people would come up and be apologetic because they'd hand you books to sign that were a little worn, and some of them kind of be like, "Are you kidding me? We love it. This means you're reading them. You're not just sealing them up and putting them away and getting a signature for some speculative reason. You're actually reading the book." So there are a lot of lovers of comics and actually reading the books down there. But just seriously, one of the most wonderful times. Beautiful people, just great time down there.
It seems like we might be having some little technical difficulties as well, but I got to tell you, I don't know if you guys are seeing that at all, Fernando, but it reminds me of like some of those old Pepsi commercials where they would have that sort of like, but it's great. And
it's like Max Headroom.
I've always heard this one. Say what? Yeah, yes.
I think so, Lee. Yeah.
What's happening?
I'm hearing like a reverberation from certain words. Like,
how can I get rid of it?
Oh, I don't know. You got that fancy.
It's fine. Don't even sweat it.
Yeah, it's okay.
You know what, man? Sometimes the shoelaces fall out of the shoe, and you just got to keep on running. So
I can try switching.
Really good.
Try switching internal mic on the computer, see if that works better, just for a sec, if you want.
Sure, go ahead. What I'm going to do is I'll put you in the green room for a minute, and I'll bring you back in when you give me the thumbs up. And
I already switched. Does that sound like better?
Good to go, okay?
I switched already.
It sounds perfect.
Is the weird thing going?
That's great. No problem. Don't even worry about it. Yes. So, like I said, thank you guys so much for joining me today and having this discussion. One of the beautiful things about comics is everybody that's watching right now, or anybody that's attending any of the panels or viewings that they got going on live at CCXP, they're all there for the same reason, and it's because they love comics. And that story that you just told, Lee, about how those folks come up to you and reach into their back pocket and pull up that crumpled old comic and hand it over to you and ask you to sign it is such a beautiful story, because I think that's what everybody wants to hear, is that there's that joy of comics and appreciation of the art form. And that's what's so incredible about the Kubert School, is that we focus in on that art form, and that's what we do so well, is teaching the art of storytelling. So if you guys wouldn't mind maybe just touching on it, Fernando, if you'd like to start, because you are an instructor at the school, you teach basic drawing, you teach narrative, you teach humor and character. If you wouldn't mind touching on the importance of storytelling, and then Lee, if you wouldn't mind chiming in afterward.
Sure. Yeah. You know, that's one of the most important skills that we teach at the school is that storytelling aspect. And it's one of the things that when brand new incoming first year students, when they first show up, I point out to them that it's probably something that they've taken for granted, because we're suddenly taking these drawings that we've been drawing all our lives, and now we have to communicate with those drawings. We have to make those drawings tell a story, convey information, be clear. And that's all aside from just making it drawn well, making it look good. You know, so this actually involves like real conscious decisions that we make, real choices that we make with our drawing. And it involves a lot of stuff that we don't always think about when we draw. You know, most of our lives, we're just drawing for ourselves. We draw what we like. We draw what's fun to us. We don't really think about drawing with that purpose of being understood. So there's a lot to talk about there, and you know, that's what narrative art is. And you mentioned the humor and caricature aspect, and that to me is just another form of narrative art, with maybe a little bit more of a specific purpose being the humor aspect of it. So then we're not only telling a story and conveying information, but we're doing it hopefully in a funny way, and hopefully people will be laughing at us for the right reasons.
And Lee, if you wouldn't mind chiming in about the importance of storytelling in comic books.
Yeah, just amen to everything that Fernando just said. And as he was speaking, I was thinking about you know, just the idea that we are storytelling creatures. It's like we're built to communicate and tell stories and share stories back and forth. And who hasn't told a joke or listened to a joke? And there's a structure, right? And there's a structure. We, as Fernando so well said, we take for granted that we know how to do it, just talking back and forth. But if you go to school to be a writer, or if you study to be a writer, whether you're in school or not, there are rules to the language, so that when you write something, the person is receiving it at the other end in the way that you intend it. If you mess up grammatically, punctuation, whatever, the structure of the language is such that if you don't master some of these rules, what you intend to say can be received incorrectly at the other end. Same goes with what we're doing here. There are, again, I believe all of us have a natural, we're designed that way to tell stories, to communicate back and forth. But just as with writing, you need to learn, you know, read elements of style, whatever, learn how you use different punctuation marks. There's a grammar to this as well. And and it's maybe not as scientific, because there's always a way to, when I say not scientific, I mean, we're not locked inside a box. There are a set of guidelines that kind of you work within, but there's always the room to find those opportunities to step outside the box. So what we try to do, and since I was a student back in the early 80s, it's the same. Just to learn those rules, learn the structure, learn what it is to tell a story and be clear, but also seek those opportunities to step outside. And Joe used to talk about, you know, get the narrative, get the story, and then be creative on top of it, never at the expense of or in place of, you know, proper sound storytelling. And really, that just means that what you intended to say, what you intend the picture to say, that's what the reader is taking in. You just don't want them stopping and hitching. So
yeah, I always say,
and that's something that we really try. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna reiterate the point that what I tell my students is your audience isn't going to know anything unless you show it to them, unless you tell it to them in your drawing. And I always piggyback onto that, the warning that you can't wait for the word balloon to bail you out. You can't wait for the words, the text to make your story understood. A really good narrative artist can do it with the pictures. I mean, yeah, there's always going to be some exposition that we need the dialogue to say, but the overall story needs to be understood with pictures. And you got to make sure that your panels, your drawings answer those questions of where's your story taking place, who's in the story, and what's everybody doing. And if you could do that clearly in your drawing, you should be able to get your story across. And it's not that easy. It's not, we take it for granted that we can do that very easily, but it's not. It involves a little bit of thinking.
I found that when students originally come into the school, they're closer to more being like an illustrator, someone who just draws a picture. Okay, now there's a big difference between being an illustrator and then being a narrative artist, or what I like to refer to as a cartoonist.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys wouldn't mind elaborating on the differences between an illustrator and a cartoonist, because I think that sometimes there's confusion in the general public of what a cartoonist actually is. They think that it's something closer to an animator or someone that just draws simplified cartoony pictures, which is extremely difficult. But if you guys wouldn't mind elaborating on that a little bit.
You want to go for it, Lee?
You go ahead.
Well, when I think of illustration, I usually think about that singular piece of drawing, that singular piece of artwork, whether you're illustrating a landscape or a car or a fashion model, showing off clothing, or even a portrait, or anything like that. There's going to be communication there, but it's going to be up to a point. When you're talking about a comic book page, there we're talking about not only a singular illustration conveying information, but we're talking about a group of illustrations. And this group, these panels, each panel has to work together. There has to be this flow of information from one panel to the next to the next. And this is one of the examples that I do, I think on either my first or second class in my narrative art course, is I show the students what a fine line there is between an actual comic book page with a story to it and a bunch of pictures. Okay, there's a very fine line between the two, and you need to have that thread of information that's lacing through your panels, bringing the panels together and making them relate to each other in order to convey this information. If you don't, I mean, you could have a picture, you have a picture of a guy, you have a picture of a castle, a picture of, an alien spaceship. In your head, that all may make a story, but you always have to step outside of yourself and look at it from the audience's point of view, who doesn't have your story in their head, and they look at it and they're just going to see a person, a castle, and an alien spaceship. They're not gonna know how these things relate to each other. You mentioned the cartooning, and sometimes when you do use that word cartoonist, there is that sort of predisposition to think about it in terms of, like the Far Side, or artwork that's very stylized or simplistic. And I don't mean that in a pejorative way, just very stylized. But one thing that recent years should have told us is that genres are extremely broad, as are the styles of art that's out there. I mean, there's room there for the very cartoony, simplified stuff. There's also room for very ultra detailed, realistic stuff. So it's a very broad spectrum out there. There's room for a lot.
Yeah, I was thinking back to the conversation we had just recently, And when I think about it for myself, I'm talking about how I'm embracing the idea of wanting to be a cartoonist for the remainder of my career, however many years the Lord blesses me with. That I feel like I wrestled with the idea of being an illustrator and a cartoonist. Always loved storytelling. Just since I've been introduced to it, just love the idea of sequential storytelling. But when I say cartoonist, and again, I love Fernando's description. I see maybe things that are less concerned with representational reality that allows for expression and bending things. And when you're talking about real crude, simplistic drawings, there are certain things, some of my favorite comics, that are done exactly that way. And I don't think they would work if they were drawn like I drew them or if Neil Adams drew them. And the one that pops to mind, one of the most powerful comics I ever read, the first time I think I came close to tears reading a comic book, was Mouse by Art Spiegelman. Mm. And how the fact that is so pared down to these, I guess you could say crude, they're iconic images of mice and cats and what they represent. The fact that it's stripped down to such an iconic representation allows for more emotional involvement. Scott McCloud does that great bit in his book, Understanding Comics, where he takes you through the progression of a realistic face, a photographic face, realistic drawn face, a little more cartoon, down to the simple smiley face. And all of them are smiling, but which one is more immediately communicating? Well, the smiley face is the one that is completely abstract and bereft, minus any of the representational information, you know. So the other thing about cartooning and narrative art, I know when you say cartooning, we're not necessarily talking about narrative art because there are cartoonists who are single panel cartoonists and stuff, is that I'm going to, do you mind if I reach and do this thing? I didn't plan on doing it, but I'm sitting here. It's, I don't know if the audience can move my mic out of the way. If you can see this, you can see this little quarter that I have here. On the one side, it's a two-headed quarter. On the one side, it's got George. On the other side, it's got a completely different. Boy, I'm having a hard time holding it to face the camera. Forgive me. Now,
that trick works just as wonderfully online as
okay. Now, a lot of times when I speak to a class of art students or aspiring cartoonists, or I've done it at several panels. I think I did it in Brazil 2 years ago. It's a clever little icebreaker, but it's also a demonstration of the essence of what narrative art is to me. It's not just a sequence, but it's knowing there are synapses, there are gaps between the images, so that we are actually leading the reader into making an inference from image 1 to image 2. So sometimes you leave stuff out in between. Oftentimes, honestly, that's where the storytelling and the drawing comes alive, is knowing how to create those intervals between images so that the reader fills in the rest. Because, like, here's a comic book. That's panel 1, a non-moving image. It's just a static image. That's panel 2, a non-moving image, a static image. And that moment that my hand covered the 2, where I went to spin it around, that's the panel gutter in between the 2 panels. And that's where the magic happens. The magic happened in that split second that my hand was covering both of them. In the same way, the panel gutter between the 2 panels is really where all the magic is happening. Otherwise, we have static images. We have non-moving images that might suggest movement with motion lines and stuff like that. But it's playing with that interval and finding out how much can I stretch that space between and give the reader the exciting moment of going, oh, that's what happened, without breaking it. You know, you don't want to stretch it too far because then you fail as a storyteller. You don't want to lose the reader. But give them enough. It's the same way in a drawing. If you're drawing a circle and again, I do this as part of the demonstration. If you draw just a simple circle, but you break the outline in the upper right and put a shadow on the bottom of it looks like a ball. And when you break that outline, there's something that happens to the drawing that it comes alive, the simple little ball. And the reason I believe it is because it's what was left out, you know, and that engages the person looking at it, so they actually become a participant in the creation of the drawing. They have to finish the drawing off. Same way as storytelling. When I can trust the reader with certain bits of figuring things out along the way, and I try to do it as much as possible, that I'm instead of me doing it to you, I'm saying, come do this with me and we'll do it together. So they're participating in the telling of the story. My favorite movies are that, Hitchcock, where he implies certain stuff and you go, oh, that means so-and-so did it, or whatever, Anyway, I'm going on.
That's a beautiful analogy.
And it was wonderful.
That was great.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I like it.
So
I use it enough.
To turn it over to the school for a second. I think one of the biggest misconceptions about people looking into the school is that we are primarily a superhero-centric school. I think what you'd be very surprised to know is that a majority of students that come on in are interested in doing a lot of creator-owned work. And I think that it goes back to what we're saying, though, is that whether you want to do superheroes, whether you want to do your own creator-owned book, whether it's crime or horror or whatever it is, it all comes down to the storytelling aspect of it. Because unless you have those sort of skills to convey the story with your art, you're not accomplishing the goal of what you're setting out to do. Fernando, with the students that come in, especially in first year, what seems to be the biggest thing that they're lacking? I mean, is it just the lack of storytelling skill? What is it that they gain in that first year at the Kubert school that'll help build them up as they move forward?
Well, I think one of the things that just about everybody gains is that real expansion on their experience, because when they do come, they do even those students who show up drawing very well already, and we get a range. We get people who got a ways to go, and people who draw very well already, and a lot of people in between. That's normal. But even with those guys who draw well, most of them draw well, but they draw very specifically, because they've drawn what they've liked, what they've enjoyed all their lives, and a lot of times it tends to be limited in subject matter, genre, style. Maybe they draw Batman and they draw beautiful Batman, but that's all they do is Batman.
What's wrong with that?
Not a thing. Not a thing. But well, we want to make these guys employable, so we want them to expand their repertoire. So a lot of what we do is getting them to see beyond just what they do already, because they've made the decision to come to a school. Presumably, you want to learn something, and you want to get better at what you do, and you want to be able to do more things. You don't want to do just that one thing that you already do semi-okay. You want to do everything as much as you possibly can. I often tell the students my own example. I came to the school and I was a big, Superman fan and Spider-Man fan. And yeah, I wanted to draw Superman and Spider-Man, and I could do those things okay. But for me, coming to the school, my goal was to be able to make a living at this, make a living at art. And I wasn't so narrow in my focus that the only thing I wanted to do was to draw Spider-Man for a living. No, I was realistic enough to know that I just wanted to do anything for a living that involved me and my pencil, me drawing. So I learned how to draw a lot of different things in all different ways. And one of our teachers at the school, the legendary High Eisman, who's still active, 93 years old, God bless him, still working, still drawing Popeye, of all things. But he had drawn Archie. And Archie comics, when I came to the school, I was 21. I hadn't read an Archie comic in about 10 years. So I had to give them a thought. But I knew it was a job. I knew it was a job. I thought to myself, I'm sure they pay somebody to draw this, so why couldn't that be me? So, that's different than drawing Spider-Man or Superman or those guys. So I learned how to draw that too. I learned how to draw art, and it led to me getting, my first work right out of the school. Archie came along and they hired me in my third year. So if it wasn't for that ability to diversify, to draw different things in different ways, I would have had a harder time to break in. But luckily, I could do that. So I'm always telling the students, learn how to draw everything in as many different ways as you can. And to not to go on endlessly here, but another point I want to make, because a lot of students do, they do really rigidly pigeonhole themselves. They'll say to me, oh, I'm just not into whatever. I'm not into Batman, or I'm not into the X-Men. And I always tell them, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you are a fan of what it is that you're drawing, because number one, as professionals, you're going to be hired to draw all sorts of different things that you don't even care about. Nothing that you're really emotionally attached to. As an illustrator, you're going to be hired to draw a car, a plate of food, a house. These aren't presumably the passions of your life, but you're getting paid to do that. The other thing is, and more immediately, it doesn't matter what you're drawing. It's just something to draw, and in the school situation, I just want to get you drawing so that we have something to talk about. So when I give you an Archie script to draw, or a Batman script to draw, whatever script to draw, I don't care if you're a Batman fan or an Archie fan or not. I just want to get you drawing. I just want to give you something to draw. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. And this is also why I also tend to leave it wide open to these guys. When I do give them a Batman script, I'm not expecting them to draw it like Neil Adams, or, they could draw it however they want. They could draw it like Neil Adams. They could draw it like Darwin Cook, like Bruce Timm. So many ways. They could give me manga Batman if they want. They could do it so many different ways. So that's what I got to say about that. And I hope I've answered the question.
It was great. My next question, and I think this is a perfectly fine question for both of you, is why do you feel that the Kubert School has been so successful in its nearly 45 years of being open and teaching and creating wonderful artists that have come through and gone on to work in the comic and entertainment industries? What is the key that has made it work so well?
I'll take a shot, and then Fernando can correct me if I'm wrong.
Lee, if you want to take lead on that.
Actually, I think it really spills out of what Fernando was just saying, right? I just remember the message from the first day, and I was there in '83. The message from the first day is, you're going to do a lot of work. You're going to do a lot of drawing, and the learning comes from doing. And Joe was a big believer in just throwing you into the deep end of the pool and getting started. That doesn't mean you don't. And what Fernando was also saying about just learning to draw everything. It's like a musician. You don't get to play your favorite song every time. You play a lot of other things, and you do scales to warm up. You do a lot of exercises to get to be able to do these things. To just limit yourself to a particular genre. I mean, one of the things that I've told people for years is, if you can draw, you can draw. They say, can you draw this? Well, I can draw. So yes, I can draw that, because I've learned how to draw. Once you know how to draw, you fill in the blank. Whatever it is you have to draw, you can learn how to, you can do that, because you understand what you're doing with the pencil, how you're creating three-dimensional form in space and such. So one of the tragedies, to go along again to just buttress what Fernando was saying, is when you see people that spend so much time on just the characters that they want to draw, but they're neglecting the backgrounds, neglecting the perspective, neglecting, so it's my teacher's job. Actually, it's the student's job. It was my job as a student, but it's also the teacher's job, supervisorily, if that's even a form of that word, to cultivate that attitude in the students so that they realize the importance of drawing a microphone, recognizing that those are a series of cylinders that are stacked together, that everything the most complex shape can be broken down into just a few basic simple forms. And the more you do it, there comes a time, I've told this story many times in regards to perspective. I used to work on all my perspective and I still work out most of it, with vanishing points and such, and just really complex, just a lot of intense, labor-intensive work. And when I started working in the business, I was a few months in, not quite a year into doing daily professional work. And I had to rough out an interior of an apartment in the character I was drawing. And I could just see it. It just showed up. And I didn't need to, I still relied on, if I'm looking and seeing something a little wonky, I could go back to those vanishing points and work it out. But I was able to block in an interior of an apartment pretty accurately with 0 vanishing points and multiple pieces of furniture pointing in different directions, not all sharing the same vanishing point. That comes from time, just spending time with it and learning to look and see. And that's another thing that I like to stress an awful lot from the very beginning, is that drawing is much more about these and this than it is about this. It's learning to see the reality around you, be able to then interpret that into a two-dimensional space. But yeah, it's just through the time. And honestly, I got so excited. I'll never forget that day. I can tell you the panel, the page. And I don't know the issue number. I just know what was in the panel, where it was on the page. And I just like, oh my gosh, I can see it. It's like that moment in the Matrix when everything just kind of like, I can just see it.
You knew Kung Fu suddenly. It was incredible.
Yeah. It's just time.
How about you, Fernando?
Well, I mean, to me, I think very concretely, the school has always been famous for really lining up such great teachers, because one of the requirements that the school has for its teaching staff is that everybody has to be working in what they're teaching. So the student, they aren't learning so much from teachers as much as they are from professionals, and to that end, in our classes, we've always been encouraged, and I certainly take this approach in my classes, to treat our assignments not so much like homework. It's not busy work in school, as they are real jobs. So we try to really emulate that professional experience as much as possible in the classroom. And I think, the school has definitely, in these past 45 years of its existence, the school has gotten that reputation. It's earned that reputation to be able to turn out students who do have that work ethic, and that it's like our students, the moment they're out there, they've all had 3 years worth of professional experience working in our school. Our homework has been their professional experience, because they're not doing there's the little rudimentary exercises that's necessary as part of any course, but we get into big, extensive I have my students in my narrative classes, they're drawing pages for me. I'm giving them professional scripts that they're drawing from, and that's just in narrative art. On top of that, these guys, they're doing digital production, they're doing coloring, they're doing lettering. These guys are learning, physically learning, literally every end of the whole comic book making process. And let's not limit it to just comics, because the dirty little secret of the Kubert school is we aren't just comics, not just comics. We teach all aspects of commercial art and professional illustration. A lot of us tend to use comics, like I mentioned before, as just that thing to draw. you know, just that thing to get you to focus your drawing on. But you know, we do cover all forms of commercial art, and you know, I think the school has certainly earned that reputation in the last 40 or so years.
I think that's one of the big reasons for the success as well. Just that your skills are applicable to so many different fields within commercial art that because comics is super competitive. It's not everybody's going to get that primo job drawing their favorite character or whatever. You're going to have to settle's probably not the right word, but you're going to have to take what's available, at least for a time, until you kind of earn your way into a position where you can have a little bit more say. So in the meantime, it's important to be able to do storyboards. It's important to be able to illustrate a coloring book. It's important to be able to do these other things. Back when I was going, it was paste up and mechanicals before the digital age, but now all these digital tools, and even just having facility with the applications, the programs that you use, and that's going to be valuable. Going and working for, if you get a job with some firm instead of as a freelancer doing comics. So yeah, I think it's the diversity of how applicable the skills are to so many different fields that I think that should and is a comfort to a lot of people coming into the school, knowing that I'll be employable.
I remember when I was a student, if you asked me the whole time that I was a student what I wanted to do, it always depended what class I was in. Whatever class I was in, I think that's what I wanted to do then. I remember my lettering teacher was the great Hal Campagna, and he used to tell me lettering was my forte, and I would think, okay, I'll take it, I'll do that. And my animation teacher, Greg Webb, he said I was a natural animator. Okay, I'll do that. So I embraced whatever class I was, because to me, whatever class I was in, that was a new job I was trying out for. So I always what I didn't do, and I tell the students not to do this now, I never took a class and shut myself off from it. I never said, this isn't anything I'm interested in or anything I'd never do. No, if you're going to pay me, yes, I'll do it. So, I was open to anything.
Along the same line, my who my lettering teacher was, right?
No, was it High?
Yeah, it was High. And I was probably one of the very worst. We had a large class. That year. And I was very, very bad. But I put the time in because I loved it. I loved that I was learning the right way to do these things that I had, just tried to do on my own and didn't know what an Ames guide was or whatever. And years later, I know for a few years anyway, sorry, this is self-serving, but just by putting in the time and putting in the work, I went from being really horrible at something. By my assignments at the end of the year, he used in future years to show incoming students that, like, look, you can stink, and then and just putting in the time, you can look like this.
That's great.
I got really good because I love doing it. And along that same line as well, I feel that way about jobs. When people say, I have this pithy answer that I give. When people say, who's your favorite character to draw? And I say, the one that's on the table. And I mean, in a way, do I have favorite? Yeah, I have favorite characters. But in a real way, and I think this is what you're talking about, that thing that's on my table, I get it's engaging. And you find what's interesting about that character. It doesn't matter what it is, or if it's lettering, or if it's 2D design or whatever. That's more about a mindset and just getting it. But there is a lot of truth there. I mean, I love doing that Flintstones cover that I did a couple of years back. Whatever it is I'm doing, there's some part of it that I fall in love with in the process of doing it. And I think people can, cultivate that type of thinking so that they can do that. The students can do that.
I think that's the beauty of what we do here, though, is whatever it is that we're doing at the end of the day, the bottom line is we're drawing, and that's what we love to do. And I think that initial passion is where we all start from, and I think that's what brings people to the school, and that's what brought us all to the school, is that we love to draw. And I thank God every single day for every additional day that I have in this business, that I'm doing it, that I'm making a living drawing, pushing my pencil, and not digging a ditch somewhere. I'm able to do it. So that's one of the most rewarding things, and one of the easiest keys to a happy life is to be able to make your living doing what you enjoy.
Yeah.
Now, I've often said, on Sunday nights when I get together with friends, and there's always that point in the evening where everybody starts saying, "Oh, I gotta get to work. I gotta go to work tomorrow. I gotta get up early and go to my job tomorrow." I don't have that. If I'm gonna spend my Monday at my drawing table, I'm happy. That's what I love to do most in the world.
Unless what I'm working on was due last Friday.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I may not love it at 5 in the morning, the day before it's due, but usually I love it.
Yeah.
So at the school, just so everyone knows, this way you're aware, anyone that's interested in attending the school, our schedule is that you have 2 classes a day, Monday to Friday, with a lab in the afternoon. So that means that you would have 10 classes in total a week. Now, these classes cover everything from basic drawing to narrative art to digital production, lettering, digital coloring, painting, and it goes all across business. And each one of these classes is specifically put together. The curriculum is built this way to make you hireable, not just in comics, but in many related commercial art fields. And that's what Fernando and Lee have been talking about. And that's what I really do feel is so special and incredible about the school, is that this curriculum that Joe Kubert created is still being used to this day. And it's always built upon to be made better and more current by using the updated technologies like Lee was speaking about before, and to ensure that the students are getting the best possible education. So this way they are hireable when they leave. And one of the really cool perks, as I like to call it, is that in third year, what we do is we invite in a bunch of different companies, and they all come and they do portfolio reviews. Of course, due to COVID right now, we're not able to have people coming on in person as much as we'd like. But so what we've been doing is we've been doing them remotely. So we're having folks come online and do digital portfolio reviews. And if anything, it's actually been able to open up our doors even further and cast out a wider net to different companies all over the place. So this way we can do digital portfolio reviews for the students. But by having these portfolio reviews, it allows these companies to come in and cherry pick out some of the best students possible and help them to get work right from day one. And it's been an incredible event. Last year, we had every single student doing Red Sonja trading cards for Dynamite Entertainment, which was really incredible, and I really appreciated that. So thank you, Dynamite, if you're watching. But I mean, it's been an incredible thing to see how this works for the students. And Fernando, if you wouldn't mind touching on the portfolio reviews a little bit.
Oh yeah, I've often said that's almost worth the price of admission alone, because that is such a rare opportunity that you're getting. Nowadays, people think like, well, I get my portfolio together and then I go to a comic convention or I contact these companies. The hard reality is these companies don't want to hear from you. They don't want to talk to you. So if you can get, and at conventions, you're going to be, in a cattle call with like 200 other people. So it's not an ideal situation to be seen at a convention. But that face-to-face contact is crucial. It is decisive. So here at the school, by the time we get to our third year classes, we may have a group of 20, 30 students in our third year, in our graduating class. That's, 20, 30 people who are sharing 2, 3 editors who are sent from each company every year. And you're sitting down, you're here at the school, or, currently we're doing things virtually. But that opportunity, for an editor to walk away with 30 names to remember as opposed to 2,000 in a convention, that's huge. That's huge. You will be known. You will be remembered. The other thing too, and we tell this to our students at the school, all students get a Kubert School email. They get a Kubert School email address. And editors have told us, when they get email from someone that says Kubert School, they read them. They prioritize those. They take a look at those. And I've used my own experience as an example too. As I mentioned before, I was hired because Archie came to the school. They looked at my portfolio. They liked what I can do. So I was very fortunate in that I went right from my last day of classes in my third year to the very next week, I started drawing my very first Archie story, and I stayed with them for 22 years. So this thing we do works out. It works out. But that experience, that portfolio review, that's important. And one more thing, leading up to that, you have your 10 instructors that you have a week, plus all the instructors, because you have access to all of us, really. But you have us all to help you put that portfolio together, to make sure that you're showing these companies the right thing. And that also, I mean, it's not just you picking out your 10 favorite pictures of Wolverine. You've got guidance here to help you impress these people. So it's a really valuable experience. And we also say, just one more thing, we also say it's not even about getting that job so much as it is making that connection. Because they may not have, realistically, they may not have a job immediately that day that they come to meet you, but you've made that connection where you could keep communicating with these people, and eventually it could lead to something. It's a very real contact you're making. That's it.
Can I share some?
Yeah. And then in addition to our regular classes, please go ahead.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you at first. I just wanted to say, in addition to that, just thinking back to my own time and speaking with others through the years, the one thing that maybe hasn't been specifically mentioned, although it's inherent in everything that we're talking about, is just the importance of being amongst a community of peers. I mean, yes, you have the instructors who have all the knowledge, but you also have this, and being able to meet virtually is great, but there's nothing like being in person or around like-minded folks who are trying to accomplish the same or similar goals that you are. So there's that friendly, hopefully most of the time friendly, competitiveness, but also sharing of information and stuff. And one of your important contacts could be a classmate, for all you know. When you get ready to go out and seek work, maybe it's someone else that's going to get the first big gig and needs a little help on it or whatever. You know what I mean? You just don't know. But that importance of being surrounded, even to this day, I work mostly by myself, and I long for that studio experience of having others around, because I think there's real value in that.
That's very true. I mean, the school very directly led to my first job at Archie. Every job I have had since, every single one, I have gotten through a connection that I've made. And most of them have been connections I've made through the school. Every single one has been through a friend, a classmate, a fellow faculty member, a colleague at the school. And that community, as Lee says, it's very real, that QB community of graduates. And we're everywhere. We've got this little network out there across the entire industry. Mm-hmm. And it's across comics, animation, greeting cards, everywhere. We're everywhere. So
we're cubicular. What is the word?
I know what you're doing.
It's too much of a dad joke. Forget it.
It's one of the great things that Joe used to say to us when we were students, and something that we still say, and we've all been saying it for a very long time, is the person that's sitting next to you in class, even though you're graduating, that will not be the last time you ever see that person, because you're going to need to reach out to that person in the future for some extra help, maybe on some pages. You might be in a position to be able to hire someone and give them that work, but you will always be in touch with these people as you move forward. I still talk with my classmates. I've been in a wonderful position to be able to work with instructors in my career that I had, that I became very good friends with. And I mean, the Kubert School changed my life, and it was completely for the best. It was an incredible experience, and I can't recommend it enough to people. And I'm not saying that because I'm the president of the school, because I truly believe in the school and what it represents and what it can do for people. And it's a wonderful thing. And I'm not trying to be like Bill Murray and Scrooged right now, but I'm telling you, if you get a taste of it, you're going to want it every single day. And it's a beautiful thing. And I hope that if anybody's interested in the school and you come out here, dive into the deep end of the pool and start swimming, because it's a wonderful experience and you're going to love it. I promise you, it will work. If you go in it with it 100%, you're going to love it. We've got some questions that I just wanted to kind of pick up from the audience, if you guys don't mind. Let me see here really quick. So one of the questions was from, I'm sorry guys, I always find it kind of funny, but the names that the folks choose, I'm sure it has wonderful personal meaning. But King Crow asked us, what tips do you have for those that want to get into storytelling and pages and panels? What would you recommend to them to check out? I know that's a loaded question, King Crow. I mean, really, the simple answer is it's cool. Check out the school, but you should definitely. I'll turn it over to everyone else, but go ahead. Otherwise, I'll talk too much.
My recommendation is always, if storytelling is your thing, if that's really where your passionate interest lays, read stuff, read comics. And when I say that, I mean, read the good ones, read the bad ones, because there's things to learn from both. And read, especially whatever you're passionate about, whether it's Batman or Archie or manga comics, whatever it is that really excites you, read it. Read it and study it, and start developing that analytical eye for asking yourself, why do you like it? What is it about it that you're digging? And you'll be surprised how much you could teach yourself that way. And I'm always encouraging that in my classes. So I tell people, if you want to learn storytelling, experience storytelling first of all.
Yeah, and I would just add on top of that, and Fernando touched on it, is the developing, because not everybody has it, the ability to see what's wrong. Not that you don't want to take that too far and beat yourself up, which I've been guilty of plenty of times. But because there is a fine line between, but the person that is going to develop, that's going to grow, is the one that's going to see what's lacking. If I look at my drawing and I'm just totally happy with my drawing all the time, then I'm really not there's no opportunity in there. There's no empty space to be filled up. So I also tell people who are aspiring, who are overly frustrated, relish that. Relish and rejoice that you're frustrated. That thing that you're frustrated with, that you're failing in now, that's the empty space that if you focus in on it, you're going to fill that. That's the next place of your learning. So just being able to be self-critical without being overly critical. It's a real tough balance, I think, but it's an important one, to be self-critical and also self-encouraging. You have to be able to encourage yourself as well, and to be surrounded by people who can do the same for you.
We do have some folks that are asking about if the Kubert School offers online courses. So due to COVID, what the Kubert School has begun to do is now we do offer we call it hybrid learning. What that means is that if you aren't able to attend in person, or if you are in a different country, we have students from all over the world that attend the school. If you are in a different country, you can actually join into our classrooms and take the same instruction from our instructors live and be able to interact with the students in the class. So you are able to take those classes online. It's absolutely incredible. Fernando, if you wouldn't mind touching on that. And then something else that I would like to add in to all of you is that if you have interest in the Kubert School, and maybe you just kind of want to get a taste of it at this point, you just want to get a little toe in the water, you can always check out the Kubert School Online Studies courses, which are absolutely incredible. These are live instruction with some incredible talents. We have Fernando Ruiz teaching some of the classes, Tom Mandrake, Jan Dursima, Dan DiDio, Amy Chu, Erica Schultz. I'm breaking things in my office because I'm getting so excited. But but they're absolutely incredible. So you should check out www.kubertschool.edu and make sure you look at art programs and then online studies. So this way you can check that out. But just know that if you are a foreign student or you're somebody in the States that isn't ready to make the big move out to New Jersey and stay at the mansion, as we like to call it, where all the students live, you can attend online. So Fernando, if you wouldn't mind touching on our hybrid program a little bit and what that's like.
Oh yeah, that's been amazing. That has really been it's really been a real game changer, and it's really expanded things because yeah, we are no longer limited to just that crowd that can make the trek to Dover, New Jersey. But it's also you know, so now yeah, it's global. Anyone around the world can now log into our classes and experience our classes. It's the same exact course that our students in the classroom are getting, but we're doing it through our computers, and we can communicate that way. We have our, you know, we have the cameras on. You see me. You will hear me. You will hear the other students. And if you can't make them out, then we have, you know, the chat feature where we could communicate that way. We could even close caption the classroom if that helps. Plus, all of our classes are recorded. So if you do live around the world in another time zone, and you know you don't want to wake up at 3 a.m. to take our classes, you do have the option of being able to view the class later, and you get the assignment and all the same instruction. And also with the instructors, we're always an email away, so you always get to communicate with us as much as you need to. So we're never removed from you. You always have access to us. So that's been great. And to me as an instructor, it's been a great learning experience because I have to now, you know, keep up to date with all the technology. And I'm using the Cintiq, which allows me to do demonstrations online, which also get recorded and are part of the course. So it's really been an amazing thing. And we also have we have a Google Classroom for all of our courses, and that Google Classroom, it's like a private Facebook page for each of our classes, where you know, it's only access to the students in the course, the instructor, and the administration of the school. And you go on there, and the assignment is posted there. You can read the details of the assignment. You post your homework there. I, as the instructor, I will grade and critique the work there. And it also gives us a forum where we can post things of interest. So I'm always, you know, if I find a video that my students are interested in, I'll post it in the classroom. I'm always posting links to books on Amazon in the classroom. So this whole interactive link experience, I think it's really just enriched the entire learning experience at the school. I think it's been great.
I think that's fantastic. And in addition to the regular courses that we all take and the other programs that we offer for our full-time students, what we also offer to them are master classes. Now, these master classes are taught by Andy Kubert and Lee Weeks. So Lee, I'm talking about you as if you're so far away right now. But what he does is he comes in and he picks out a specific topic and he works with the students and he gives them some insight on things from his career or different things that he's done with. So Lee, if you wouldn't mind just touching on maybe some of the classes or some of the things that maybe you've discussed in last year's master class, and what you talked about and how you kind of handle those.
The thing about this craft is it's not like there are a million different rules to remember. You know, there's a small, not a large number of rules to drawing, but it becomes complex in the application to the many different ways they do it. What I try to do is just try to take some of those ideas and principles maybe to a different depth of understanding or whatever, you know. And you said it, I just try to apply my own experience and just try to stretch and pull things a little further, deal with something specific. Like I know that acting is touched upon because we did it first year at the Kubert School, but just really delve into that a little bit more. What are just some of the details of the subtleties of how you can use acting without overacting and stuff like that. So, you know, I like to, no matter what I'm talking about, it always comes back to some of the same things. That thing I spoke of earlier with the inference implication dynamic, where the artist is trying to lead the viewer to infer things. Just help students cultivate that in their work so that they're thinking. This is as much of a thinking. Again, pretty pictures are great, but there's so much to think about in this and to explore. So what I try to do is that, and then just give them an in-depth critique as often as time allows, so that they can see the specific things they can work on in what they're doing. I hope that was coherent.
That's wonderful. I think that was incredible. It was very clear and to the point. It was great. So everyone, before we wrap this up, I just want to let you know that right now the Kubert School is running an incredible promotion for the holidays. If you have interest in applying to the Kubert School, you can apply for free right now. We're waiving the application fee. If you visit kubertschool.edu, you can go to the apply now, go on and log in there and type in code HOLIDAY. You'll see the payment receipt number at the top. You just type in code HOLIDAY, and that will allow you to apply for free. Also, if you guys have any questions about the Kubert School, please do not hesitate to reach out at info@kubertschool.edu, and we'll be sure to get right back to you. You can always give us a call at 973-361-1327, and we'll get right back to you as well, too. Monday to Friday, though. Please don't call on the weekends. But, guys, thank you all so much. I appreciate you all so much for joining us today, and of course our incredible guests that are here today with us, Fernando and Lee. Thank you both so much for joining us today. This was incredible. Do you guys you have any parting words? Fernando, would you like to say anything before we close out?
Oh, I'm glad for everyone who's tuned in and who will be watching this video. It's great, and pretty much like you said, if they have any interest at all in the school, please reach out to us and communicate with us. And we're all over the internet, so we could all be grabbed a million different ways. So by all means, I'm always getting questions online about the school. Mm-hmm. Don't hold back. Feel free to reach out to me anytime.
What was the question again? Just final thought. Just a final thought. Deus te abençoe. Little Portuguese. No, it was great hanging out, and if narrative art is what you want to do, then you need to at least check out the school, and just to. Yeah, this was a great time. good spending time with you guys.
It's always great getting to spend time with you, Lee and Fernando. It's always a joy, I gotta tell you. And likewise, it's always a joy spending time with all of you who are tuning in. And I just want to say thank you to CCXP again for helping to put this whole thing together. It's really incredible. And I hope the show is a huge success for you guys. And remember, everyone, you can find us all over social media. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere you can think of. And of course, make sure you hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel for the Kubert School, as we'll always be updating with some incredible new videos. We just put up the correspondence course videos with Joe Kubert, where he gives his instruction. Those are really incredible, and I hope that you guys check those out. So remember, for more information on the Kubert School, visit www.kubertschool.edu, or feel free to contact us at info@kubertschool.edu. Thank you all again so much for tuning in and checking this out today. This was the Kubert School Live at CCXP 2020. Thanks again, and we'll see you all real soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.